Hello, and welcome to another episode of Untraditionally Traditional, a podcast with me, Brittany Duncan, a millennial homemaker. Join me each week as I share all the things I've learned that make keeping your home, garden, and life running smoothly, all while working. If you are enjoying the podcast, please be sure to subscribe in your favorite podcasting app so you get the episodes downloaded straight to you every Monday. Now, on to today's episode. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Untraditionally Traditional, a millennial homemaker. This is your host, Brittany Duncan, and today's episode is part 2 of a 4-part series that will walk through what I consider to be Homemaking 101, the foundations of homemaking, 201, intermediate homemaking, that's what we're doing today, 301, advanced homemaking, and 401, specialized homemaking. Last week, we covered some of the homemaking foundations, which, if you're new to homemaking, I highly recommend listening to that episode before this episode. But even if you've been in the homemaking game for a while, I think it can be really helpful, practical to circle back to the basics, even if that's just to look at how much we've learned, how many skills we've gained since we first started homemaking. No one is born an amazing homemaker. It's a series of skills that are honed and refined after months and years and even decades of practice. And some things are best done the traditional way, and other things, laundry, for example, has come a long way with technology. Personally, really grateful to not have to drag my linens down to the closest river with a washboard and make my own soap with lye in order to wash my sheets. Speaking of which, let's change up the order a little bit today and start with laundry. Some intermediate skills of doing laundry are stain removal and learning how to iron or press linens. If you go to the laundry section of Walmart, there are 1,000 stain removers, and I'll be honest, I've tried very few. I bought a book a few years ago written by Patrick Richardson, also known as the Laundry Evangelist. And for immediate, advanced, or specialized homemakers, or anyone just who really loves laundry, I highly recommend it. But Patrick sells a stain-removing bar and brushes on his site that I've used. The bar lasts and lasts and lasts. I've only bought it once, and has been really great for removing stains. With the bar, another product I love is the Branch Basics Oxygen Boost Powder. Think OxyClean, but a low-tox version. I've been able to remove any stain I set my hand to. Recently, though, and with having a little one on the way, I decided I wanted something that I can just spray on a stain and launder as usual. Because while I think it's a really good skill to have, using the bar and the oxygen boost and the brush, it can all be a little time-consuming. So after much research, I bought Miss Mouth's Messy Eater Stain Eater Spray. It's a mouthful, which I haven't used a ton yet, so I'll report back on it. But what I have used it on, it has worked perfectly. So on Amazon, it has 87,000 plus reviews and 4.5 stars. So clearly people love it. So that's what I'm using as like a spray stain remover for those moments where I just don't have time and I just want to spray something on it and throw it in the wash. Let me dive into what I have used a lot, though, which is that stain bar and brush. On the Laundry Evangelist site, you will see a brush selection that has all sorts of brushes, but the one I want you to zero in on is the horsehair stain brush. Looks like a toothbrush, but the bristles are soft enough for your garments. When I have a normal stain, I simply wet the brush, I rub it on that stain bar of soap, and then I gently brush the stain in circular motions. And typically, you can see it lift. If I have something really tough, for example, I bought a used baby outfit the other day, and I didn't realize it had a stain on it. And I ran it through the laundry. It was still stained. It was like a light pink red. It looked like it was probably like a berry stain, and it was pretty set in. So what I did, I used that horsehair brush and the soap, just as I described, but then I also got the stain pretty damp, and I sprinkled about 1/2 teaspoon of that oxygen boost powder on it. I let it sit for 30 minutes, and then I threw it in the load of laundry, and voila, the stain came right out. So I do tend to use that oxygen boost powder for when something's really set in. But I also love it when washing our sheets or towels or anything that's white. Something I learned in that book I referenced, Laundry Love, is that your bright whites are actually dyed white. So bleaching them is stripping that dye. Cotton is more of a natural white as opposed to a bright white. So the Oxygen Boost powder, it's not a bleach, but it does brighten whites. So that's what I use with my detergent when I am washing whites. Now, I have done episodes in the past where I have used very low tox laundry soap, whether that be the soap flakes from the Laundry Evangelist. I've tried Molly's Suds, Country Sauve, or Save, and they all worked for a bit, but eventually I found that my clothes were not smelling clean. And I'll be honest, I've given up on that journey. Currently, we use Ecos laundry detergent on the good, better, best scale. It's good. It's not great in terms of the ingredients, but it's also not Tide toxic. The thing is, and this is really important to remember in the homemaking community, which often overlaps a lot with the low tox crunchy community, what you do that is low tox has to work. I found there was no point in buying low tox laundry flakes or powders if my clothes didn't smell clean. So here we are. That's what I use in terms of a laundry soap. And yeah, I think you just take it from one homemaker to another to give you permission to use what you find that actually works in your home. Remember, good, better, best. We're not always going to be doing the most low tox thing possible, or at least particularly for me, where I if my clothes are going to smell musty after spending all the time to wash them and iron them and do all the things, I'm not doing that. So anyway, yes, let's talk about the next skill, which is ironing, which is really a learn as you go skill. My very first job was in housekeeping at a resort, and I bet I ironed and starched 100 napkins a shift. So napkins are one of the easier things to iron because they're flat, and they tend to be like a cotton fabric, which you can iron on high heat. But start with ironing some simple things before moving on to, say, a dress shirt that has many panels, a collar, buttons to contend with. A few tips for ironing. One is to add water to your iron. Steam is your friend. And then follow those heat settings. When in doubt, lower is better. One stain I don't believe that can be removed is burnt fabric. So check the tag in the garment to determine what the fabric is, and importantly, if it can be ironed. A lot of things, polyester is made of plastic, and plastic melts, my friends. So a lot of polyester things you can't iron, but what you can iron, you'll do on the appropriate heat setting, and then keep your iron moving. You don't want to let the iron rest in one spot on the fabric for too long because it will burn. Keep it moving in linear tracks. YouTube can be really helpful when learning how to iron. And then, it's just one of those things, practice makes perfect. If you want to do a test run before ironing your real clothes, consider buying like a wrinkled and inexpensive shirt from the thrift store to practice on. Hit your tea towels or your dishcloths. Not only will they look pretty hanging wrinkle-free, but they're an easy and forgiving piece to practice on. Okay, last week we talked about cleaning, and the foundational cleaning task was hitting 3 hot spots, small areas that have a big impact. Now we're going to talk about maintenance cleaning, actually creating a cleaning routine. I'm going to link an episode in the show notes that I did, and it's called Doing It Daily, My Cleaning Routine. It was actually episode 3, if you can believe it, and it still holds true today. I personally prefer this approach of one or a few small cleaning tasks each day as opposed to doing one big, once weekly house clean. If you listen to that episode, you'll hear in more detail, but I used to do it that way. I used to, spend about 3 hours on Saturday morning just going at my house and cleaning it, and it's exhausting. And you have this perfectly clean house, honestly, for a very short period of time, and that's when it's just my husband and I imagine if you have kids, good luck. It's probably immediately dirty as you're cleaning it, because the thing is, houses are lived in, right? People walk in the door with their shoes on. If you make a meal in the kitchen and you use flour, it's going to dust those surfaces. Your kids are going to spit their toothpaste in the sink and will forget to rinse. People live in them. It's just a naturally messy process. And it's what makes a house a home, right? If we wanted to live in this perfect sterile environment, we could live by ourselves, and that would defeat probably many of the reasons that we homemake. So to combat this, I adopted a daily cleaning routine. And I found that I was a lot less overwhelmed by the cleaning process because I only do it for about 20 or 30 minutes a day, and my house feels about 80% clean all the time, which is huge. So, for the sake of time on this episode, I'm going to encourage you all to go and listen to that episode to help you determine what your cleaning routine should look like. After all, every house and family is different. But once you figure out what your cleaning schedule is going to look like, the next part is to start to develop your product list. What tools and products you use in your home to keep it clean. Like the products I use for laundry, I have tried many a household cleaner over the years, and at this point, I know what I like, and I buy that. And again, it just comes with trial and error and research. But I will tell you what I use in case you are kind of new to this and you want to start with what is kind of tried and true for our family. I'll start with low tox and then go to high tox. First on the low tox front is the Branch Basics All-Purpose Cleaner Concentrate. If you listen to other homemaking podcasts, I am sure you have heard this advertised or praises sung. I first heard about it on another homemaking podcast, and after hearing, ads for it about 20 times, I decided to give it a try, and I'm really glad I did because I truly love it. I should say I love it for creating a counter spray, and I love it for creating a floor cleaner. I don't love it for hand soap. I don't love it for dish soap because it feels like watered down soap, and that's just not for me. But that bottle of concentrate like lasts and lasts and lasts because you're only mixing a tiny bit with water to create whatever product you need. It feels expensive when you're buying it. I want to say it's like $50 maybe for this bottle of concentrate. But again, I've only bought it once and I use it all the time. They sell bottles that you can do these mixes in, but I just bought some cheap amber glass bottles off of Amazon and I do the ratio myself. For the counter cleaner, I do about 98% water, 2% concentrate, and then I add a few drops of essential oils from doTERRA to make it smell nice. For the floor cleaner, I probably go like 95% water, 5% cleaner. Again, I'm not like precious about this. We are, I'm cleaning my floors, but it's not like they are hospital sterile. So I don't know. That might not be the appropriate ratio, but that's what I do. It cuts grease and it cleans just as well as Pine Sol, which is what I used to use to clean my floors. My grandma used Pine Sol for as long as I can remember, and I was influenced by her, but it's toxic and it does not smell great. Sorry, Grandma, but I'm really glad I have Branch Basics now. So that's what I do for the countertop and floor cleaner is the Branch Basics All-Purpose Concentrate. And another thing I have is Swedish dishcloths, which I use on my counters in lieu of a rag or paper towel for most things. They last forever, they limit waste, and unlike a cotton cloth, they don't smell or get musty or leave little fluffs behind. The trick is to make sure that you rinse and wring out the cloth well after you use it and hang it to dry. I still have paper towels for like big messes or heavy staining things like beet juice, but I primarily use these Swedish dishcloths for countertop cleaning. Really love them. For dusting, I use the Swiffer duster. I find it actually picks up the dust versus just like spreading it around. And I use this to dust, including my baseboards. And then I will hit the surfaces with that counter spray and I vacuum wash. So when you are doing your dusting, you're always going to want, or you're cleaning rather, really, you always want to start from the top down so that you're not knocking dust onto your clean counter or knocking counter crumbs onto your freshly vacuumed floor. So I dust rather, top down, like hit the blinds, then I'll clean the counters, then I'll hit the baseboards, then I vacuum last, that kind of thing. The toilet bowl cleaner I use is from 7th generation, and I also love using a toilet bowl pumice stone. This is really great if you have any rust in your water. That's often something you can't control, or if you find that your toilet gets a hard ring around it that's tough to scrub off with a normal brush. The more you clean your toilet, the easier it's going to be to clean, but I really like having that pumice stone so I don't have to scrub like a maniac if I let it go a little longer than normal. In terms of glass cleaners, I'm sorry, I've tried the natural ones. Personally, I don't think they work the way Windex does. So Remember, my rule is that whatever I'm using to clean, it actually has to clean. So Windex is in the household. I use the ammonia-free one because I hate the smell of ammonia. Top tip for cleaning wood stove glass, if you have a wood stove, that I learned from my dad after watching him do it my whole life, is that nothing cleans the soot off of glass in a wood stove better than wetting wetting some newsprint, dipping it in the ash from the fireplace, and then you rub the glass with that. It creates a fine paste that's mildly abrasive enough to remove the soot, but not scratch the glass. And this works way better than the toxic fireplace glass cleaners. It's cheap. That's better for your health. So if you have a wood stove, we don't. I wish we did. We have one at my in-laws' cabin, and I've shared the tip with them, and that's what they do now, and what we do when we're there. But that's what I would do. But in terms of cleaning, like my windows, mirrors, and all that, I'm a Windex girly. For the shower, I use an electric scrubbing brush and pink paste. I have the brush and some other equipment pieces I'll address in a second, linked in the show notes. But that's what I use to scrub and clean my shower. But I also try to use a squeegee to remove the water from the walls when I finish showering. I can guarantee my husband doesn't do this. So it's only about 50% of the time that it's getting done. But it does stretch out the amount of time that I need to clean the shower by removing that water. It just doesn't get as many hard water stains. It doesn't, it prevents mildew because you're removing that water, that kind of thing. Barkeeper's Friend is what I like for our sink, our kitchen sink. Our sink is white, but not porcelain. It's almost like a sprayed cast iron type sink. And the way the spray is, it's slightly textured and it can hold on to stains. And so I've tried a bunch of different things. I've actually used that Branch Basics Oxygen Boost powder in there, but I found that nothing works as well as Barkeeper's Friend for actually scrubbing it and getting it back to white. So that's what I use in the sink. I used to use that in the shower before I found the pink paste, but I found that the pink paste works well enough in the shower, but I do save the Barkeeper's Friend for our sink there. We have a glass stovetop, and the cleaner I use is from Weiman. Love the stuff. Also love their stainless steel polish cloths, and I use that to wipe down all of our stainless steel appliances and our trash can. Last but not least, the silver polish I use is from Wrights with a W, although it's been insanely hard to find lately. Not sure why. So I did recently buy Goddart's, which is a good second choice. I have found that silver creams work so much better than a polishing cloth, so that's what I use to polish any silver that we have. We don't use a ton of cleaning equipment, but the four things that I can think of are that powered scrubber brush for the shower that I mentioned. We use a Dyson V8 stick vacuum, and we have had that since before we were married. It was given to us as a gift from my parents. It's amazing. About 2 years ago, the battery started to go, and so I ordered a $40 replacement battery from Amazon, and it's been perfect. So it really does last and last. I think vacuums are one of those things that you get what you pay for. The Hoover Spotless Carpet and Upholstery Cleaner I love. It's a competitor to the Bissell Little Green machine, which you may have seen. I'm sure both are on par, but it's a really nice device to have. Every 3 months or so, I hit our sofas, which are not slipcover, and clean them, and I'm always amazed and disgusted at the color of the water. I'd like to say it's due to our beloved golden retriever. She is allowed up on the sofa, and she just gets dirt and fur and grime on it. And so I really like being able to use that upholstery cleaner for that. But it's also really nice to have whenever we spill something on the carpet or when Sage throws up on the carpet. It makes that panic when somebody spills coffee or wine subside, because I just whip out this machine and 2 minutes later the stain is gone and it's all clean. The last thing I use is a Swiffer type mop that I got from Amazon, where you put your own cleaner in it. I gave you a breakdown of Branch Basics. That's what I use for the cleaner. And then it has these washable pads that you stick onto it. And I've had it for 5 years now, using the same pads. I'll link it in the show notes. It's pretty inexpensive. It's great. And top tip, I just did this the other day. With a fresh mop pad on it, you can also wash your walls. We were doing a painting project in baby Duncan's room, and I didn't want to break out the ladder or anything crazy, but I did want to, wash the walls before starting painting. And so I just wiped down the walls with a fresh mop head for 2 minutes. And then I proceeded to go through the other rooms of our house and wash the walls because it's rather addicting and it was super easy. So that's something that I'll be probably working into like maybe a 2 times a year cleaning, or certainly like spring cleaning. It's just to wipe down the walls throughout the house. Look, cleaning section was a little long. Sorry about that, guys. On to food. Once you know how to cook a little bit, you can do it a little bit more and hone that skill. Having 8 to 10 recipes that are family hits that you can make without stressing out is huge. Again, this is going to come with time, but also an intermediate homemaking skill set is meal planning and grocery shopping with intention. This keeps stress down because you're not asking yourself at 4 p.m., shoot, what should I make for dinner? What, I didn't pull any meat out of the freezer, right? It saves you money because you're not blindly filling your cart at the grocery store. And, cooking for 1 to 2 people can be a challenge when it comes to buying ingredients and not having waste. That's definitely a learned skill. Recipes, it often calls for like one part of an ingredient, but not the whole thing. So if this is something new to you, a book that my friend Michelle recommended to me a long time ago is called Cook Once, Eat All Week. And I love it because it gives you 3 meals with different flavor profiles that will use up all of the ingredients. So it basically tells you what to buy, and then you make the 3 recipes and you will have no waste. It's going to use everything that you bought between those 3 recipes. They're really helpful. They're delicious. So if this is something you're trying to figure out, how to make different meals and use the produce before it goes to waste, this book is fabulous. I also make notes in my cookbooks what a good tandem recipe is to make that week if I make the dish. So kind of reminders to myself of like, consider making XYZ. Again, it's a learned skill. It's a practice makes perfect. Talking about saving money at the grocery store, the immediate homemaking skill about budget is to, actually have a budget. If you listen to last week's episode, you know the first step is to know how much money is coming in and how much is going out. Do you have debt? How much is it? What's the payoff schedule? From here, it's time to sit down. Maybe it's just you at first, and then it's you and your spouse, or maybe you do it together, but get serious about your financial goals and what you can spend where in order to reach them. This will adjust in time as your finances change. Johnson and I have been in many, many seasons financially, and there were seasons when he was in school, and my job didn't pay very much. We lived in a 1-bedroom apartment, renting, and I was religious about the grocery budget, like every transaction tracked. Now that we're both working and we've honed in our spending and our financial goals, things are a little less stressful. We've been like pretty much on the same kind of financial journey for several years, but now we have a baby coming, and I know that babies come with lots of expenses, and I fully expect to be back to the budget drawing board with this change in life. Like treating your seasons of life all the same when it comes to your budget doesn't work. You have to make sure that your budget is ebbing and flowing with your personal scenario to meet your financial goals and like where you are at personally. So it's kind of why, again, it's trial and error a little bit. You can't just Google like how much should I be spending on XYZ. It's very dependent on what you bring in, what your utilities run, how many people are in your family, what you do for entertainment, and do you have debt, all of those things. But by ignoring your finances, you're only hurting yourself. So establishing a budget, and even if you're not like hitting that budget, realizing like how much you're going over and at least having that guideline and continue to refine it is helpful. You can't be blind about your finances and expect to be in a good financial position. For taking care of the outdoors portion of your intermediate homemaking is to work on your green thumb. There's a saying that the best gardeners have killed the most plants, and it's so true. If you feel like you have a brown thumb, know that every green thumb starts as brown. I encourage you to start small with a flower pot or plant some bulbs or flowers in your garden. Start with one, keep it alive, and then expand from there. If you don't have an outdoor space, consider getting a houseplant or 2. Trader Joe's typically has very reasonable houseplants. Snake plants, pothos, I think is how it's pronounced, and monstera plants are very forgiving. and somewhere you can start. And they just make your house feel fresh. So I love a good houseplant. Last but not least is our category of entertaining. Last week we talked about kind of an intro to entertaining, which was simply to arrange a get-together out of the house, to be responsible for the scheduling and the logistics, but not to actually host that event. But now, this week, we're going to add in a little bit more responsibility, and that is to actually host the gathering in your home, but we're keeping it at a level of reserve by outsourcing the food. If you have a small group, say 1 or 2 other couples, we'll say 6 people or less in total, considering ordering takeaway. Or if you want to host a big group, organize a potluck, delegate food to each party attending. As the host of this kind of gathering, whether you're doing takeaway or potluck style, there are still a few factors that you'll be responsible for as the host. Of course, seating. You need to make sure that you have places for people to sit. Do you need to have a white linen place setting for everyone in attendance? No, but you should think through and make sure that there are places for people to sit and eat. It doesn't have to all be at one table. You can have some sitting at your dining table, some at the kitchen island, and if you're comfortable and the food allows for it, some people can park it on your sofa. If you're having people sit in places where there isn't a table, say the sofa, and they can't use a fork or knife, make sure the food can be eaten without cutting, or pre-cut the items so that they can use just a plate and a fork. If you are doing a potluck style or large gathering, consider disposables for the plates, cups, cutlery, especially if you're new to hosting. Set out some hot pads where you want the food buffet to be. This can be as simple as some folded up tea towels that keep hot dishes from cooling on your cold counter, or if you have wood countertops, you want to make sure that they don't get burnt. So always put down something so if somebody brings in a hot pot, they know where they can put it. Consider delegating drinks, but it's always a good idea to have some beverages on hand. Large pitcher of water, some ice, and then some seltzer waters or non-alcoholic beverages is fine. Since Johnson and I don't drink, we usually let guests know to BYOB. I used to get some beers and various canned cocktails in our fridge for guests, but honestly found that they were rarely consumed and they were just taking up room in my fridge. So people have their own beverage preferences, and if they want it, they'll bring it. And that, my friends, wraps up our second of 4 episodes in this homemaking level series. Next week, we're going to dive into advanced homemaking skills for food, laundry, cleaning, budgeting, caring for your outdoor space, and entertaining. Until then, happy homemaking, everyone. Thank you for listening to this episode of Untraditionally Traditional. If you enjoy the podcast, please share it with those special people who would love it too, and write a review. For more tips and photos of my home and garden, follow Untraditionally Traditional Pod on Instagram. Until next week, let's continue to make our homes places of joy and service to ourselves and those we share them with.